Hello, everyone, and welcome to People of Interest. I'm your host, Miguel Guanipa. This show is based on the premise that everyone has a story, and we invite people here to tell the story so that we may be enlightened, encouraged, and perhaps even inspired. My guest today is the author of a recently published book called Strength and Dignity. Her name is Shelley Rivelli. Shelley, welcome.
Oh,
Thanks for coming.
thank you.
So you told me that's what you told me to say when I introduced you.
Yes.
I thought just I have
That's
to memorize
perfect.
that. So how are you today?
I am well, really
Good.
great.
Okay. Um, if you notice on the background, that's your surprise
I
background.
love it so much. It's great.
Like, I wish it had come a little smaller.
Makes me
but-
feel like I'm at home.
Yeah. And you got is that the color you got?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so that's the story that you have in your book about a big chill
Big chill refrigerator.
Tell me a little bit about that story.
Okay. So I started reading a book by Shannon Martin, and it is her story about how she went from working a high-profile job, and her husband cared a lot about material things and making sure that their bank account was hefty and that lifestyle, to moving into a neighborhood that would be considered maybe on the other side of the tracks. And it's her story about living with less and letting go of material things and really investing in relationships instead of things. And at that time, I had my heart set on a big chill refrigerator. They're not cheap. And I was starting to kind of have this new walk in my faith about what's important and where we should put our investments and invest our money, and taking a look at reshaping that for myself and my family. But I really wanted this refrigerator. And I do write in the book about the fact that this really started to be a time in my life that I had to start considering what was important to me. And so I joked, but literally I started teaching a class on this book, Falling Free. I started teaching a class at my church about it, and we would have hard conversations.
Falling Free is the book by this
Shannon Martin.
Shannon Martin, yeah.
Yeah, and so the class itself would have really hard conversations about these things. What does it mean to help the least of these? What does it mean to walk like Jesus walked? And what did he think about money? What did he think about storing up your riches or putting your money into material things? And these really kind of hard conversations. I really wanted this refrigerator. So I had decided that it wasn't a good idea to spend this kind of money on the refrigerator as much as I loved it, and really think about putting my money into things that would actually change people's situation. This refrigerator could help somebody pay rent for months.
Feed a family of 5.
Could feed for a very long time. That all being said, I had just to put it out of my mind. And stopped kind of looking at magazines and that kind of thing. So lo and behold, my husband bought one for me for Christmas.
Just
Christmas.
recently.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it's okay. So the book was written like a couple of years.
Yeah, so the Christmas before. Yeah,
okay.
I do have one, and when I wrote the story, I did not have
You did
one.
not have one.
My husband bought it for me the Christmas after.
Oh,
So
that's great. Does it look a little bit like that one?
it looks just like that.
It does. I didn't know it was going to be that color.
It's that color, and I really do love it. That
Yeah,
being said, I did grow in a lot of areas
Yeah.
about what is important.
The
but
refrigerator helped you grow a little bit too. because
it did
you-
help me grow.
Yeah. The waiting period.
The waiting
Also.
period and really coming to just the new idea, and having to rethink what was important.
I was thinking about you. Thinking about you. You're very expressive.
Oh, thank you.
So I guess maybe not directly related, but oh, you said thank you. I said you were expressive. That's okay.
What?
I was not just laughing. You're very expressive. But I take it as a compliment. Yeah, that's a good compliment. But you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
Yeah. How old? Young?
I'm second. So
You're the second one.
my sister Carrie is 14 months older than me.
Okay.
And then I have a sister, Jill. She's younger. And then 2 younger brothers, Doug and George.
So 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you grew up pretty much with all of them, or separately?
Yes. No, we grew up together. My mother and father were married for 22 years. So we grew up together.
Yeah. Who had the strongest personality, you think, of all the children?
I'm still a little bit afraid of her, but probably my sister, Carrie, the oldest.
Older sister? Mm-hmm. She was the first or second?
She's first.
She was the first.
She's the oldest sibling.
So when you say you're afraid, it's not like you're afraid, but just like she's intimidates you a little bit?
Yeah, no, we're very close.
Yeah,
but...
okay.
Yeah, no.
But she's kind of a...
No, she's wonderful.
Yeah, bossy person.
And it's no, she was the oldest out of all of us,
Yeah.
so she held a big responsibility, I guess.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Did she live up to that responsibility? Take
Yeah,
care of you guys?
She
and
did,
stuff?
very much so.
All right.
Very much so.
And then the other ones, your brothers and your other sister, you kind of like, then you
I was second.
were second, and you were kind of like, now you're the boss for
No.
them? Or, no?
No.
They were also very...
Yeah, no, nobody listened to me.
No.
No. I was very different than the 4 of them.
You were? You're a little quieter? Or?
No, not quieter. They were very athletic.
Oh, okay. Oh.
I was not.
No.
No. They were all very talented athletes.
Well, what did you do when you were growing up then? Growing up as a kid, what were some of the things that you did? If you weren't doing sports, I mean, you don't have to be doing sports, but what were you doing?
I worked.
With your spare time.
So it was important to me
Yeah.
to work because I liked things.
Work doing what?
So believe it or not, I worked at, my very first job was in Northbridge, and it was called the House of Affirmation.
Yeah.
It is on Hill Street now. It is a manor, the beautiful manor on the right-hand side on Hill Street.
The big.
The big, yep. I actually think it might even be for sale now.
Yeah. House of Affirmation.
House of Affirmation, and I served nuns and priests.
Wow.
There.
How old were you when you were working there?
Very young. I lied about my age.
Yeah.
I was very young.
But you really wanted to get in there?
I really wanted to work.
Oh, you wanted to work.
I just wanted to work, so.
You like to work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I work a lot, actually. I always have.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, so every job that you had, you really you're all into it, basically, what you're
For
saying.
sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yep. And then I worked at an ice cream place in town, and I nannied through all my summers at college.
So it was because you like things, you say, or you just have this
Well,
work ethic?
I think we have good work ethic. We grew
Yeah.
up without a lot, and
Yeah.
so I think that all of us knew that if we wanted things that were outside of what could be provided for us, we'd have to work for them.
So these days, let's talk a little bit about that. And when you said you grew up without a lot. So you
For
remember
sure.
that when you were like
Oh,
little? And,
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yep. Absolutely. I would just even say we grew up poor. There's kind
Yeah.
of not two ways about it.
Yeah.
Yep. My parents, so my father was the breadwinner, but he drank. He was an alcoholic and he was a gambler. My mother, it was important for her to be home, so she worked outside of the house kind of when she could. She waitressed, and then
Yeah.
when we were older, she got a job.
Yeah.
And, yep, we were definitely poor, definitely relied on the church
Yeah.
to provide things for us. I think everything probably to keeping a roof over our head and food.
Wow.
Cars, and so we were really blessed by the church. But I knew it We all knew it.
You knew it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we knew. All of us knew
Was
that
it a little
our families'
embarrassing here and
lives.
there, or going to school or something? Did people give you a hard
So
time?
my mom just did such a great job at not having it appear. When I wrote the book, I talked about growing up poor. It's certainly not
Yeah.
something that I'm ashamed about now
Yeah,
as an
yeah.
adult. I actually think I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, you're so different than your friends, and you hear the word no a lot, and you see what it looks like for your mom to not love telling you no, and
Oh.
it brings a lot of different feelings into the household.
Huh.
But I wrote about growing up poor. And it's so funny because I think people say kind of in humble beginnings, and we were poor. I mean, I think things that we got to enjoy were because grandparents helped or that type of thing. I think there were times I know there were times in our lives that my mother worried that we'd be homeless, that we wouldn't be able to even stay in the apartments that we lived in.
Wow.
But the funny thing is, my mother did such a good job at taking care of us and doing the best with what she had. When a lot of people who knew me read this book and talked to me about it, they said, oh, gosh, we had no idea.
Really?
We had no idea.
People that had grown up with you? And...
People that had grown up with us and knew
Wow.
my parents. And so that's really because of my mom and her ability just to do the best and still train us up well and teach
Wow.
us. Yeah.
Well, so you didn't go around telling kids, "Hey, listen, I'm poor."
No, but I felt like they could probably tell. When
Yeah.
when you're different. No, it wasn't anything we ever talked about, and maybe some people didn't know, but I knew.
Oh, it's funny when you said you have to hear no a lot. So I know as a parent, and so I'm asking you also, like to just think about this for a moment. You tell me your personal experience. But I know as a parent, I've said no to my kids, not a lot of times, but there have been some times that I said no that was very difficult to say no. So do you what experiences have you had with your children like that, or?
Yeah, I think I've had to practice saying no because my situation is very different. I do get to say yes a lot, and I think it's hard. I think it's a growing time for kids who grew up poor, who become adults, and their financial situation is different. I think it's hard. I think we want to do differently for our kids, and it's interesting. My pastor had read they're all very small chapters, had read the one about growing up poor. And he said, man, I think we should all raise our kids like we're poor. That mentality of not just giving and not just providing, of course, the basic needs, but not doing the overboard and always saying yes, because he really gave me some reasons why it's more detrimental to raise. So that made me really start to think about the fact that I do say yes a lot. My kids don't go without.
Because you love them.
I love them, and it's that feeling of wanting them to like what they have. But I think it can be a slippery slope, and I did write about that too. I don't want.
Okay, don't make me feel guilty.
Yeah.
I get it. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. When do you say no to yourself? Do you find yourself doing that, and when does that happen? Not too often, huh?
Not too often. No, it's really an interesting.
Okay, I think about the reason why I thought about that question is because the thing about the children, about saying no to the children, is that when the hardest time that I said no to one of my children was when I was very capable of saying yes. I had all the resources to say yes, but I needed to say no. And that was very hard.
But you stuck with it?
I stuck with it, yes.
It's a discipline, I think, for parents to say. Say no.
It was because I had said yes before. So it wasn't like the first time that this had happened, that this time that I had to respond to something. So had said yes. And when I mean said yes, I didn't mean, it's just, I'm also talking about actions,
Oh,
you
sure.
know, and not just like the yes or no, but actions or responding or the given.
Mm-hmm.
And so the given, I had said yes because you love your children. And
Right.
even these are now, I'm talking about adult children
Sure.
too. So,
Yeah.
so that no was a no when my child, let's not we'll call it a child, is also
Yeah.
older, like a young adult now. My child had knew that I could say yes,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that I could say yes, obviously, to what I had to say no. It was the best thing, actually, to
Right.
do that. So,
I don't want my children to become something or miss out on learning lessons or learning work ethic because it's
hmm
always a yes. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
hmm
How do you problem solve, or how do you really decide what's important or what you want to work for um, if you're never forced to?
what is the most important lesson you would like to teach, pass on to your children?
Gosh, so many.
You can give me like one or two.
Okay. Oh, yeah. How long is the
You have
show?
to prioritize them.
Okay. Probably the number one lesson, would you say, or thing that's important?
Piece of advice or
Piece of
lesson
advice.
or word for them to say this is if there's anything more important out there that I would love for you to know, this is it.
Jesus. 100% Jesus.
Mm.
Uh, and I want them to know him on their own. I want them to really learn who he is and not who the world says he is, and maybe even not even lessons I've tried to teach them. I really want them to walk with him and get to know him and his example when he was here and what he taught on their own, so that they have that internalized when they're making decisions. So 100%. Yeah, I'd like them to know Jesus and how much he loves them,
Mm.
because it makes all the difference.
Makes all the difference. What some parts in your life that Jesus has made a big difference?
I think teaching me my value. I think the world is very noisy
Your value of who you
of
are.
who I
Yeah.
am.
Okay.
I think how you grow up,
Mm-hmm.
things that you feel like you failed at,
Mm.
life experiences, and then who the world tells you that you are, through social media or
Mm. Social media.
social media, uh, or even through friendships and relationships. You are told a lot through other venues who you are. And I think when you really, really, and it's still hard, it's a struggle. I think even the person who has walked with Jesus all their life still struggles to believe that we are who he says we are, and that is loved, and that is precious, and that is made in God's image, and that is made for a purpose. And if you can really, really start to believe that and have those words fight off all the negative things that you have been through or heard, you make different decisions in life. We all make decisions out of our brokenness, right? If you're somebody who,
Huh. Can you work that out for me a little bit? That's
Sure.
a very interesting
I think
statement.
that one of the things that happen a lot to people is this feeling of rejection. Sometimes it's rejection from parents. Sometimes in life you feel rejected from people you wanted to be your friends or your peers. Sometimes you're rejected through sports. Just rejection seems to be a common thing that people go through. So you're feeling rejected, and therefore maybe you stay in a relationship that isn't healthy because at least you're with somebody. You're kind of putting up with maybe something that's abusive. You might take a job that isn't a good fit for you. You may kind of just walk a story that was never meant to be your story because you made the decision out of have this feeling of being rejected. So
Huh.
I think if you discover that Jesus will never reject you and he will never turn away from you or leave you, and that love can fill those spaces and you can get whole in that, then you can make some better decisions. You know your value. You know that God loves you and that he has a plan and purpose for your life. And I think that if you're whole in those areas, you make better decisions. So for me, I think I am just learning that. If I'm being honest, I think that I am just learning to really understand God's love for my life, and it does help you to make different decisions. It helps you to realize he has a plan, and that even though you don't understand what's going on around you, that you can trust that he's going to work it out. And it just, I think, makes you sit back and trust more than making some decisions that might not work out.
What do you think? Is the, or how do I put it? Can you isolate a catalyst? I guess a catalyst for you just beginning to learn that at this point in your life. Or what do you think is some of the what are some of the things that have made you begin to explore that deeper at this point in your life?
So unfortunately, I think it's the things that have negatively happened that have made me then. So I think I've learned that everybody, I think I've learned by trying so hard for relationships to make me happy, or for things of this world to make me happy, and that they don't, and that they fall short, and that they disappoint, and that I've put expectations on people and on experiences, and we all do that. I'll be happy when scenarios, and
When you get that big chill. Just kidding.
Yeah, the fridge makes me happy.
Okay. Anyway, carry on. Just kidding.
So
Good.
but they do fall short.
Yeah.
My relationship with Jesus has never fallen short. It just hasn't. The joy I feel, the freedom that I feel because of the forgiveness of my sins. Like, we all make mistakes. We all do things. We all fall short. And you can choose to walk around and continue to carry those things and have them be regrets or have them be things you're ashamed of, and and they can really define how you even feel about yourself. Or you can really give them to Jesus and start with just, I confess I did this. I confess. He knows everything we've done, right? He knows all the mistakes we've made. He knows why we made them. He knows. And so having that relationship, my relationship with Jesus, and talking out those things and asking him to heal spaces that are broken and helping him, asking for wisdom about things has changed my life. It has changed my life. And I always say, I wish I knew back then what I know now, and don't we all?
I was thinking about that this morning.
I wish that I did, because I think I would have. And, I talk to my kids about this, too, as they're growing older. And I have a daughter who is older. If you have an area in your life that you feel broken in, maybe you feel rejected, maybe you feel disappointed, or, gosh, maybe it is a life of poverty or strife or something in your family. Maybe there's addiction, so there's something, right, that you just feel either ashamed about or sad about, or has changed how you feel about yourself. I really pray that my kids find help in those areas, that they talk about those areas, that they come to the awareness that they need to be healed there before they make decisions. Like, I think it's really important to find healing in those areas before you make decisions like who you marry, or even things that are happening all over the world, maybe turning to drug use or alcohol use.
So to know, in a sense, I guess in essence, to know that they are forgiven is one thing.
For sure.
Thing, right?
Yeah. What freedom in that. Forgiven.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that as you were speaking that and thinking, you have a very powerful story in your book about forgiveness. Would
I
you
do.
mind sharing it with us? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
So I think I'd mentioned my father was an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother and he stayed married for 22 years. My mother, just honoring God, stayed
Mm-hmm.
married,
This Tommy's always talking to me on the shows. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
wanted to honor God by respecting and loving my father, and they stayed together. But in staying together, it caused our family again a lot of strife.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's its own story, but you can imagine, living with an alcoholic and everything that brings into a family.
Yeah.
And then as an adult, trying to decide what my relationship with my father was going to be like. Because as an adult, you get to choose that then. And I had decided it would be one of forgiveness. Was far enough in my walk with Christ to know that forgiveness is freeing, that we are all human, we all make mistakes, we all do things again out of places of brokenness, and I was going to love my dad that way. I was just going to forgive and have a relationship with him, and so I did that until he was drinking at kind of a local bar, and he was angry with me again about nonsense, and that was kind of the way it goes. That was the way his thinking was, and he was talking badly about me. My sister was bartending, and he was talking badly about me, and it had gotten back to me, and I don't know why, but I guess I was trying to figure out about boundaries and about asserting myself and saying, you know what, no more, enough is enough. And so I had decided that I was not going to forgive him, that I was going to be angry about this. And so his birthday was coming, and it was really important to my dad, and I don't know why. I guess someday I'll ask him when I'm in heaven, but birthdays were really important to him, that he heard from all of us. There's just something that was important. So I decided that I was going to show him that I was angry, and I didn't call him. I didn't reach out. I had decided, no, I'm going to let him know, and he's going to feel what it feels like for me to be mad, because I just always let things go, and I'm always easygoing about things, and I forgive. And so my brother Doug, he is, 2 down in age-wise, came over to my house, and I had just bought a house with my husband on Hill Street, and my brother was helping paint, and he came over and he said, I need to talk to you. And he said, I really feel that you need to forgive Dad. He needs to be able to come here to this house and to be part of your life, and that you need to forgive him. And I said no. For some reason, this was going to be it for me. Like, I was going to all of a sudden change the course of our relationship by staying mad at him and not forgiving him and letting him know that I was angry. And he had shared with my siblings he hadn't heard from me on his birthday, and so I knew, I had gotten to him.
He shared it.
So he shared it. So
Yeah.
I thought that I had won. Well, that is the last thing. I hadn't won at all, because just a couple weeks afterwards, he died unexpectedly. He didn't show up for a tea time for golf, and so my brother George knew that something was wrong, because he wasn't there. And when he went back to his apartment, he had died on the couch, and I had spent a lifetime forgiving him, and a lifetime wanting him to know that I loved him and that I wasn't angry at him, and that I chose not to, because I thought that my letting him know that I was angry would somehow change his behavior, which never is the case. And I really do feel that God had nudged my brother Doug to come over. I do. I look back and think, he used Doug. Douglas came over and tried to speak reason with me about forgiveness and the importance of that for the whole family, and I wouldn't listen. So I never got to have that with my father because he died.
So you kind of had to chew on that a little bit afterwards? Or?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
My mother was telling me about an uncle back in Venezuela where I come from, and this is something very similar, but it was am I interviewing you or you interviewing, what's going on here? Anyway, she said that my uncle George had a fight with my aunt Doris.
Okay.
I think it was Doris. And so they had a fight. And then that same day he went and he died right on the threshold of his bedroom. And she felt terrible.
Of course.
She said, because the last thing I did with him was have a fight. That's very sad.
For me, the last thing I did was withheld saying happy birthday.
Yeah.
Looking back, so silly and so
you'll see him someday then.
meaningless. I will. And I know in my heart that he knows that I loved him. I'm gotten to that point.
Do you speaking of your mother and your father, I was wondering, you never stop loving your parents, do you?
No.
A person isn't that, do you ever think about that?
No, it's so true. You're wired that way.
Yeah.
You're wired and created to love your parents.
Yeah.
Kind of no matter what, actually.
Almost, yeah.
Really?
But I know, I think about that. I think about my daughters, and I'm not the perfect dad. I've never been the perfect dad. I've been the best I could be, and I tried, and I grown in my old age and so forth, and I know that they could be angry with me. But your kids just continue to love you.
Oh, absolutely. And we continue to want to make our parents proud. No matter what.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yes.
Like, nothing could take that away.
Yeah.
And to further kind of prove that theory, so my mother is a foster mother. She actually just stopped. And so she has had...
Just now? Just a couple of hours ago? Or?
Well, very recently. Very recently. And she's
had
had 20 or more kids.
Change my jokes with you, dear. A different Miguel Guanipa approach. But go ahead. Anyway, carry on. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. She's had 20 or more kids. And the one thing in common, so if they're foster kids, it means they were taken from their parents. And still the one thing in common with every single one of them is that they love their parents. And it doesn't matter what it was that or the reason they were taken, and some of it can be really hard and sad. They love their parents. I think we're just wired to love.
Isn't that something?
To love our parents.
I mean, it seems natural, but to me, it's a source of amazement to me, because I'm thinking, wow, your kids, yeah, and they want you to be proud of them. Like I have one daughter that always asks that. She always asks me, are you proud of me?
Yeah.
So I don't wait for that anymore.
Yeah.
When she tells me good news, because I know what she's going to watch.
She wants
show.
you to say.
I know, yeah, when she tells me something that she's done good, that's what she wants me to say. And if I wait a minute, she will ask me.
That's like her love language. That's what fills her heart, is that you're proud of her. It's great. It's great that you know that.
I know, because she's done,
she tells you.
it. She's done it already. So anyways, that's very interesting. Well, speaking of your mother, well, I shouldn't say speaking of, I should probably ask you if there's a person in your life, but we talked about that. You can tell me a little bit more of somebody in your life that you look up to, and you say, this is...
Oh, 100% my mother.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I think the fact that she, I think that cliche, but like walks the talk. So she's a Christian.
Yeah.
She loves Jesus. She loves God very much. And she lives her life to honor God. And so no matter what, again, being married to an alcoholic man, and she lives her life, the decisions that she makes are not me-centered. Like, she doesn't make them based on her. She makes them based on whether or not it's honoring God, and she has lived her life that way. And so when she was married to my dad, and I think one of the reasons that all five of us are pretty healthy, you know, everybody has things they need to work through and need healing, is that my mother didn't allow it to cause kind of all this negativeness in our life. She was a strong mom, and she didn't talk badly about my father. I actually I actually couldn't recall one time. I mean, and think about that. I mean, we struggled with being able to keep a roof over our head and keeping the heat on. I, you know, wrote about the fact that we'd go to bed at night as children with winter coats and hats on because it was so cold, and a lot of that was due to his gambling and drinking and not being the provider that the head of the household should be. And she didn't speak badly about him. I can't think of any time that she ever said anything. And then she also just did the best with what we had and taught us what was important, and taught us about how to treat people. No matter what. I mean, we were not allowed to speak poorly about each other. That was just not accepted. We were not allowed to say, and actually it was so annoying because if we did, we had to write like 10 nice things about the person. Yeah, super annoying. Who wants to write nice things about the siblings?
Well,
We'd be
that's
like,
really a
you
good
have
idea.
nice hair. You know.
Your mother came up with that?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's not really
I mean, we were not allowed to really say anything that was judgmental. Gosh, if we ever used the word loser in our house, oh my gosh, the lectures that would come about nobody is a loser. Nobody. You know, people make bad decisions, but nobody. Like, that is how we were brought up. And she would give anything she had to somebody in need. She doesn't consider herself above anyone. She's quite remarkable.
That's the person.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
All right. That's great. I like that idea, though. To say something bad about a person, then write 10
nice
things, 10
things.
things that are nice about that person. One of the things that I wanted to ask you also is not just a person, but maybe an event in your life that you went through that was a very challenging event in your life, and how you worked through that, and how you overcame and what you learned from that situation, that event, that whatever moment, situation, anything.
I think that I'd like to talk about, and I haven't spoken about it, and I've never written about it.
Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to hear it on the show.
Because I think it's important, and I hope if it's a message that would help anyone. So I do want to talk about it. So
Yes.
I went to University of New Hampshire for undergrad, and it was really a difficult time socially for me. I'm born and raised Northbridge, and I went to high school here, and I had friends, and going off to college like everyone else was really exciting. And I never made friends. I thought at different times during the 4 years there that there were people who were part of like a group of friends. And at the end of my sophomore year, we had kind of that group of girls that tried to stay together for freshman and sophomore year in the dorms. And then at the end of sophomore year, they got a house together and didn't invite me. And I will say that was really, truly one of the times, like, kind of all the 4 years was hard because I never felt really close to anybody, and I had kind of the experience of having friends in high school. And I don't think that anyone goes through a time of rejection like that, and while they're in it, they can say things like, oh, you know what, this will all be for a purpose, or this, you know, is because of this. It just hurt.
Yeah.
It just hurt. I mean, I sought out counseling there at UNH, like found how to go do that. And so for my junior year, so you have all these experiences with groups of people, I had to put my name into like a housing pool just to have somewhere to live. And I spent a lot of time alone. I met really nice girls my junior year and then senior year, but to this day, I don't have any friends from UNH. I don't have anyone, I feel fortunate, we have Facebook, so I guess you can see people here and there type of thing on Facebook, but it was really, really a hurtful time. But now, of course, being older, I think that I can help other people going through this to say there is a purpose in everything. I learned a lot about myself during that time. I learned how to be alone during that time, and I think as adults it's super important to know how to be alone, like really alone. I go to movies by myself, I go to dinner by myself. I learned how to be alone, and I actually really like my alone time now. But I also learned that sometimes when you go without, life is so sweet when you get it. So now I have great friends. I have the most amazing friends. And I don't think I appreciate them more. Yeah, I think I do. I guess my friendships are really important to me because I know it wasn't always this girl who always had a lot of friends and a lot of that. I didn't. My best friends, my girls that I refer to kind of as my tribe or my people, or who are raising my kids with me, or who I cry to late at night, or who I ask for prayer. My girlfriends that I call and say, pray for me. I have an interview with Miguel, and I just don't know how it's going to go or what I'm going to say or what to
I'm glad you asked for that.
Or what to wear.
Prayers are working.
I have girlfriends who say, absolutely, I will pray for you, and that I know that they are. So what I learned from that is not having close friends is really hard, or really any friends. You feel lonely, and you also feel like, am I not likable? Like, you just go through all of this self-doubt, and again, I was probably the only girl I knew at UNH who had a Bible on her shelf. I sought out churches. I tried to join Christian groups, so probably all really good things that happened as a result of not having friends. Tried to find a niche somewhere. But again, I think that the appreciation, the blessing that I feel with my girlfriends is almost like tenfold because I went through that.
Did your parents know that when you were going to school?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So
it was hard. It was really hard. I'd come home a lot. Just couldn't find,
Not one person, huh? Nobody stepped up to the plate?
No, you have people you see at school in their classes.
You wanted a close friend.
But
Well, it's over now.
It is over, and I'm so blessed with the friendships that I have now. But I also want, young girls and teenagers and even guys, right, who feel, because I can't tell you, I have kids now, and I have friends who have older kids, and they go through those times in their life where they feel lonely. And I just want to say it's okay. It won't always be like that. And during that time, find out about yourself. Find things you like, do things that you like, and get to know Jesus. Really get to know him during that time, because it won't always be like that. It does get better.
What did you find out about yourself that was wow, that is a revelation during that time?
Oh, that I like to be alone.
That's what you found out?
Oh, for sure. I like to go on walks by myself. It probably drives my family crazy. I like my alone time. I am kind of like, oh, it's 8 o'clock. I've punched my mommy time clock, so you're gonna have to have cereal for dinner.
But you also like to spend time with people and friends.
I do. I am an introvert.
You are.
Sure. I know. I know, because I'm just so bubbly and amazingly
How does
friendly.
that work?
No, I am an introvert. So how it works is that I think people have a wrong idea about introverts.
Do you think people will look at you and say, right now, and say, she's an introvert?
Oh, gosh, no, but this will exhaust me. So people have a wrong idea about introverts.
Are you going to be tired at the end of the night?
For sure.
Oh.
Okay, so my husband, is an extrovert.
Okay.
Extrovert, extrovert. He goes to a party, and the more people who talk to him and the more people he gets to talk to, he gets fired up. It could be 2
He
a.m.
gets fed with that. He
I
gets energy.
can still be social, and I love people, and I love,
Yeah.
but, you know, I'm checking my clock at 9 o'clock because I've had enough. So I think introverts can be social and want to be around people. It just takes more out of them.
Really? So that's what it is. That was what you were saying, that people have the wrong idea about introverts.
I do think so. I think they think introverts are shy
Yeah.
or withdrawn.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true. I think that we love people and we love being around people. Just it does something different to us than the extrovert. The extrovert gets fed
Gets
and
like
energetic,
energized, yeah.
and we kind of say,
Kinda
"Oh, I
tires
think
you
it's
out.
time to head home."
Oh, we'll be done soon.
Oh no! I'm having far too much fun. Far too much fun.
All right.
This is great.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We were talking earlier before when you came in. So you went to school for, I'm sorry, so
Went to
a
UNH.
master's, yeah, and
Yeah.
You got a master's.
And then I got my master's in New York. I went to New York
on
to Dowling College
childhood
on Long
education,
Island.
early
Special
education.
education.
Special education. So right now, how do you use that in your
So I
career?
work for the town of Northbridge at the
Yeah.
elementary school, Northbridge Elementary School, and I run a classroom for elementary students with autism. Yeah.
That's a few kids in there that.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time. So I've been in the education field for like 23 years.
Yeah.
And every year, it's surprising how many students get diagnosed
Really?
with autism. Yeah, quite a few. And it's a spectrum. So some need
Yeah.
more support than others. But a lot of kids are diagnosed with being autistic.
Well, it's one of the things that I'm ignorant of, so, but one of the things I guess I hear from popular culture, I guess, of the autism tends to be a lot of kids are very smart in one area, and is that like actually?
Yeah, they're also, because it's a spectrum, there's just so many characteristics and so many different ways that autism, affects a child, but oftentimes there will be the student who is exceptionally smart or knowledgeable in a certain area. And it's usually an interest area, something that interests them, but they know far more than I'm ever going to know about that subject, or many people are going to know. But the blessing about that is that they can excel in that area. That might be something they could be, quite successful in.
What is when you work with these children? Do you have some methods that seem to be more effective in approaching them or dealing with them?
Sure. So I run my classroom based on the principles of applied behavior analysis. And I won't talk too much about that, but it's just different principles that are research based that help kids who don't learn traditionally to learn.
Don't learn traditionally to learn?
Yeah, to learn. They don't learn traditionally. They don't maybe don't learn just being part of a classroom, and just as somebody who develops typically in their learning can be part of a classroom, part of small groups, and they learn. This is kind of a technique that works more in a one-to-one with the student, teaching pretty systematically. There, some skills, and really works on what we call social coaching. So helps them to have interactions with others, but it's very successful.
Part of what you do sometimes is teaching some of the social.
Most of what we do, sure. Helping kids to know how to interact with each other.
And with others,
And with
because
others.
eventually they'll have to get out there. And
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
Huh.
And there's so much success. They
Really?
So much success.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
A lot
really
of the
exciting.
students who start with me, they're young. They're 3, 4, 5-year-olds. By the
Yeah.
time they're in first and second grade, they're in more typical classrooms with their peers.
So now you've been doing this for a while. So have you met some of the kids later on in life?
They're graduating. So,
Really? Is it exciting to see? Wow.
and they're and going to college and
Oh, wow.
and successful in different areas in their life.
Do they come back sometimes and see
No,
you? Hey,
I've
how you
seen so
doing?"
many.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I stay in touch with parents who always let me
Oh.
know how they're doing.
Well, that's great.
That's the benefit of working in a small town. I've always been here. I've been doing the program for 20 years. So
You know, that's an interesting thing. You said working in a small town. Somebody once told me, be careful what you say because everybody's connected in this town.
yeah, yeah, that's probably right. I think
that's
it
one of the
made it
benefits, I
difficult
guess.
to write that book, to be honest with
Oh,
you.
really?
You grew up in a small town. You think you should probably live a pretty private life, and got to consider the cost of
Yeah.
putting your story
Yeah.
out there. It was worth it for me because I think it's helped a lot of people not feel alone and
good.
feel like they can relate. So it's definitely worth it for me. But yeah, there's some truth in.
So that's one of the goals of your book, or what you wanted to communicate, is to help people.
Oh, absolutely.
Not feel alone.
Yes, to not feel alone, and I talk a lot about my struggles and my faith and different times of
Yeah.
wondering where God was. Where are you, and
Yeah.
why is this happening? And I know you could change this in a second, and
Yeah.
I don't understand why you're not type of thinking. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people wonder that. There's so much sadness, and why isn't he changing it when he could, and doubting. And so, yeah, I wanted to let people know that my faith is so important to me, the most important thing in my life, but it hasn't come without hard times and questioning and disappointment.
And it's still a process of growing.
Of course,
and all.
always will be. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is next in the horizon for Shelley? Let me see. I say Rivelli. When you married your husband, did you say, "Oh, Rivelli rhymes really good with Shelley"? And that'd be great if no? Did that?
So the funny thing is that I am married to Tom Young.
Tom Young. Okay.
Yeah, and he is wonderful. My name, Shelley Rivelli, is my ex-husband, and I kept it because of my boys. So
Okay.
my boys are Chris and Ben Rivelli, and I
Okay.
just, got married later in life and remarried later in life, and
Yeah.
I wanted to carry their name.
Oh.
But yeah, my husband, and he does not appreciate that when we go places that they say Mr. Rivelli to him.
To Mr. Young.
Yeah, because they're thinking that. So, but yes, Shelley Rivelli. What's coming up?
Yeah. What's next in the horizon?
I
for
am
Shelley
writing my
Rivelli?
second book.
All right.
I continue to write. So I have a blog,
Yeah.
which is just ShelleyRivelliTogether.com. So I continue to blog, but I'm excited about
ShelleyRivelli.com. I didn't know you had a blog.
Yep.
So okay.
ShelleyRivelli.com, and always updating that. And I don't know. I'll see where God has me going next. I mean,
Yeah.
I love this. I've been doing book clubs and book signings.
I heard you were at Barnes and Noble.
I was at Barnes and
Yeah,
Nobles.
right,
That
yeah.
was so fun. You can actually get my book there now. I mean, that's amazing
That's
to
great.
me
That's really good.
that you can walk in and
So you really want to pursue this writing
yes.
thing? That's good.
Yes.
Good. Oh.
And I'd like to do a lot of speaking. I'd like to I do speak at some women's events. I'd love to do more of that. I'd love to be able to get to know women. I love when I speak at women's events that they come up and ask me to pray with them. They want to share their story with me. They want to share how something they related to something and,
Yeah.
and talk to me about that. And that's probably my favorite, is getting to know people and
But then when that's over, you're really exhausted, though.
then I'm really exhausted. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I get it. My wife told me that too, because I'm the extrovert.
You're right,
So
right?
she's the introvert, and she told me exactly that.
You probably leave a party and you feel
I love
amped
going
up
to.
and-
I love not even being there. I love like interacting with people, but she told me that was the difference. That and she runs a shop in
yes.
town.
I love the
and
little man. Love
she-
it.
She loves that, but she sometimes she has to do shows, and I love doing the shows. I said, I'll do some for you, honey, because I love interacting with people. And she says, yeah, that's great. I love doing stuff. I'm confused, like, how come you're not crazy about doing this? I love them. She says, honey, it takes a lot out of me. And so,
Same
because-
thing though.
yeah.
I've met your wife, and she's lovely, and she is
When did you
charismatic.
meet, when did you meet her?
I've met her at a store.
Oh, okay.
I own Little Man.
Are you a little man patron?
I am. I
That's
am.
great. Thank you for,
And so
for
you wouldn't
patronizing
think
little man.
that. You wouldn't think that she was an introvert, but I don't think people would think that I was
But
either.
she is the sweetest person in the world.
Oh, she is.
And there's one thing about her that, for some reason, people love talking to her.
Well, you know, she's gentle.
She's very gentle.
She's gentle.
And you know, that's the thing about Little Man. When you go visit, a lot of people visit. She says, we talked about it. It says, you know, this is a store and a studio, but this is also a ministry for a lot of people, because a lot of people come in and talk with her and just chat about their day and sometimes the struggles, and she finds commonality with them.
Yes.
Recently, she had a woman that had a gestation tube situation problem, and my wife was just going through that
Oh,
at the same
gosh.
time. And this person, they talked about her and says, "Oh wow,
Sharing
this
their
is such a mystery."
story.
Sharing this story.
Sharing your story.
The story. So, Shelley Rivelli. Shelley Rivelli's book is Strength and Dignity. You can go to Barnes and Noble and get it,
Amazon.
and Amazon. And thank you very much, Shelley.
Oh,
for
thank
joining
you
me.
so much.
I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're not too tired. But if you do, just go ahead and go to sleep and go to bed. And
I will.
you'll wake up
I have an
refreshed.
early nighttime, early bedtime.
That's good. And thank you very much. And we'll hope to see you next week when somebody else joins us to tell this story. Thank you.